Hi, I am Elisa Fernandez Fueyo, and first I want to thank the Primate Society of Great Britain for giving us the opportunity to present our research here. I'm going to present the study I did with Alicia Carter on primates' reactions to death as part of my master's dissertation at UCL Anthropology Department. Specifically, in this study, we aim to answer the question of why do primate mothers carry the corpses of their dead infants. I want to start by referring to the field in which our research is framed. This field is an emerging one. It's called comparative thanatology, and it studies non-human animal responses to death, conspecifics and heterospecifics, because even if animals were thought to be indifferent to death or not to understand it, evidence that they are not indifferent to their death at all has been and is building up, and I hope my presentation convinces you of this. Animals' responses to death are highly diverse. I'm going to be talking in this presentation about the response of necrophoresis or transport of the dead. But to give you another example, here in these images from Chuvenek and collaborators' papers, you can see burial behavior documented in termites. Termites bury corpses in order to maintain healthy colonies by avoiding pathogen spread. Moving on into primates, the order primates is the best studied vertebrate taxon in terms of thanatological behaviors. And because of our shared evolutionary history, they are probably the best known human animals to inform evolutionary thanatology, a field that aims to study the evolutionary origins of human reactions to death. Primates perform a great diversity of thanatological behaviors, ranging from agonistic to affiliative behaviors. And even within a single event of an individual responding to the death of another individual, we can see this diversity of behaviors. In this video from Stewart and collaborators' paper, you can see a chimpanzee aggressively dragging and hitting the corpse of another individual. But then this chimpanzee starts grooming the corpse, as you can see now. Now I'm going to show you a more affiliative response in general from Das and collaborators' paper. Here you can see a bonnet macaque mother carrying a dead infant upside down, which is one of the many ways in which primate mothers carry their dead infants. And from here I want to move to our study, because this is the behavior we have studied, the infant corpse carried by primate mothers, or as I'm going to call it here after ICC. ICC has been documented in different primate species. It has been documented in northern Mauritius. It has been documented in chimpanzees, in stump-tailed macaques, in chacma baboons, and in many other primate species. Additionally, the period of time for which primate mothers carry their dead infants is highly variable, both within and between species. Therefore, our first objective was to determine the distribution of ICC and of its variation across the whole primate order. Das and collaborators have studied this in anthropoid primates, but we wanted to extend this to the whole primate order and to increase the size of the sample. The question of why ICC occurs is unanswered yet, and it could be addressed by identifying the factors that influence this variation we observe in ICC. Different hypotheses have been suggested that pinpoint different factors that may influence ICC, and some hypotheses, for example, suggest that the between species variation in ICC may be due to some climatic conditions promoting the conservation of the corpses and therefore facilitating ICC, and it has also been suggested that terrestriality may facilitate ICC. Other hypotheses try to explain the within-species variation in ICC. For example, it has been suggested that strong mother-infant bonds and also that the postpartum maternal hormones promote ICC. Therefore, our next objectives were to test the different hypotheses suggested to explain both within and between species difference in ICC or variation in ICC, and to give approximate and an ultimate explanation to ICC according to our results. Other questions that can be that could be addressed by studying ICC are, for example, are primate thanatological behaviors affected by emotions, or also are primates aware of death? And additionally, it could the question of whether a human and non-human thanatological behaviors present a phylogenetic continuity could be addressed studying ICC. So our last objective was to discuss these 3 questions according to our findings. And of course, first our first objective was to create an extensive database of cases of primate model responses to the death of their infants, that would allow us to study the rest of or to achieve the rest of our objectives. To create the database, we performed searches of published cases in the scientific literature. We recorded variables associated with these cases. So, for example, we recorded the cause of the death or the rank of the mother. We also recorded additional variables that characterized the species or the population in which the cases occurred. For example, we recorded the climatic conditions or the encephalization quotient. For testing the different hypotheses, we performed Bayesian phylogenetic regressions using our package MCMC-GLMM in order to detect the factors that had a significant effect on the ICC duration. Therefore, our response variable was ICC duration, and our predictors were 16 different factors that the different ICC hypotheses suggested that may have an influence on ICC. Our database consisted of 416 reports of primate model responses to the infants' deaths. We found these cases in 147 studies, and 157 of our cases were provided by Sugiyama Matsui from their study published in 2009. Our cases occurred in 50 different primate species and 9 different families. And here I show you primate phylogeny. In green, we indicated the primate species in which ICC or presence of ICC has been documented. In red, we indicate those species in which absence of ICC has been documented, and in purple we indicate those species in which neither absence nor presence of ICC has been documented. So ICC has been observed in most aplorhine families, so in apes and monkeys, but a presence of ICC has never been documented in strepsirrhines. This bar plot represents the median ICC duration in the different primate families in which ICC has been studied. The longest ICC durations are reported in the Hominidae and the Cercopithecidae family, the great apes and the old world monkeys respectively. And here we can see that both the within and between families variation is in ICC duration is really high, and the black arrows indicate the first and the third quartile. Here I show you the factors that we found to have a significant effect on ICC duration. So older infants were found to be carried for shorter periods of time, and we also found that mothers from provisioned and wild populations tended to carry their dead infants for shorter periods than those in captive populations. We believe that this finding is indicative of the ICC behavior being a costly behavior, and we suggest that in future studies of ICC control for these conditions, because they partially explain the variation in ICC, but they do not explain ICC's evolution. And with respect to the age of the infant, the fact that younger infants are carried for longer periods of time, we think suggests or gives support to the mother-infant strength hypothesis or the infant dependency hypothesis, because even if if it has been claimed that the mother-infant bond increases in strength as infant age. We believe that it is adaptive, that after a certain age, this bond starts to weaken to allow weaning and to allow mother-infant separation. This is in line with the mother-infant conflict theory suggested by Trivers, which has been supported by studies in different primate species. And so we think that this decrease in ICC duration that we see as infant age at death increases, which is shown in this figure, is due to the weakening of the mother-infant bond as infant age and become more independent. So if the bond, if the mother-infant bond was weak when the infant died, it would be easier for mothers to detach from their infant's corpse. Also, the mother-infant bond is regulated by emotional processes such as the maternal anxiety triggered by the mother-infant separation that has been observed in different primate species. And additionally, mothers that are separated from the infant corpses, primate mothers separated from the infant corpses, have been observed to give alarm calls, which are indicative of stress. So the mechanisms, some of the mechanisms, including the emotional mechanisms regulating the mother-infant bond, may be regulating ICC as well. And finally, this finding could be otherwise indicative of older infants being carried for shorter periods because they are heavy, so it's costly to carry them. However, this wouldn't explain why younger infants are carried, because it would be even less costly to not carry at all. I am happy to discuss more about this later if you want. Finally, our conclusions, or the conclusions of our study, are that ICC is widely distributed across the primate order. It is present in most families, but it has never been documented in strepsirrhines. ICC has possibly evolved as a byproduct of the mother-infant bond, and the emotional and other mechanisms regulating this bond may be proximate causes of ICC. And finally, we think that these results could be indicative of a more broad pattern of human and non-human thanatological behaviors evolving as byproducts of the strong social bonds. And future directions we would like to take are the collection of more data for some of the variables which were underreported in the literature, and for some species which are understudied in terms of thanatological behaviors. Additionally, we would like to study other thanatological behaviors such as grooming, or aggression of or directed towards the corpses. And for this purpose, Alicia Carter has developed the Thanatobase project, which is a collective project, which aims to create a collective database of thanatological behaviors by inviting researchers to contribute with their own observations of thanatological behaviors in primates. You can find more information about this project in this link. And finally, we think this study could be extended beyond primates in order to see whether there is actually a pattern, whether some thanatological behaviors or whether social bonds are really responsible of some thanatological behaviors both in humans and in non-humans. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.